Good morning everybody, Ian from RTO here. Welcome to Thursday's shows. First up today of course is Then and Now. Today's Then and Now is AC/DC, and the reason we're doing AC/DC because on Sunday it was Brian Johnson's 74th birthday, so I thought I'd do a little show to celebrate his birthday. So, what do we need to know about AC/DC? Well, we know they were formed in Sydney by Malcolm and Angus Young. Various people in the band. They got the steady lineup eventually, and then they went through that sad time of Bon Scott passing. They thought about quitting, but they got in Brian, and they went from strength to strength. Sadly, they lost Malcolm, but they got Stevie Young, nephew of Angus and Malcolm, stepped into the fold and has done a pretty good job since. So let's have a look at the very first album. First album they ever put out was only in Australia, of course. Came out on the February the 17th, 1975. The High Voltage that we all knew didn't come out till 1976 and would be different tracks, etc. It was produced by Harry Vander and George Young. George Young, of course, brother, who was in the Easy Beats. Big band at the time in the 60s, and they did a good job. Now, the people that played on this album, some of the names we know and some we don't. So, lead vocals, of course, Bon Scott. Lead guitar, Angus Young. Malcolm Young on the rhythms. Bass player then was Rob Bailey. And they had three drummers that drummed on all these tracks. Peter Clack drummed on one of the tracks, Tony Correnti on a couple more, and John Proud did the rest. So you got these three drummers. So, first track on this album is a cover version of Big Joe Williams' Baby Please Don't Go. It's totally different, of course, to the original, but Malcolm's driving riffs, and you got to think, Angus was playing a great guitar solo, and I think he was only about 15, 16 when he made this album. That's pretty cool. It's a good track, and I like that track. I know everyone's done a cover of it, but it's a pretty good track anyway. Then we get She's Got Balls. We all know this one. It's got that lovely driving riff from Malcolm, and you get Bon's vocals on this are really good. So it's a firm favourite of mine. Always has been. I know it's a great track. Then we get Little Lover, one of the bluesy tracks. I love Angus's solo in this, and the little whiny voice of Bon Scott weaving through the song. He's a fantastic song. Stick Around. You've got to remember this is 1975. It's not I would say it's one of the AC/DC tracks I'm not keen on. I mean, I love AC/DC. Everything they've done has been brilliant, but this is a bit off kilter, and it's not what the sound that everyone knows. But great guitar solo from Angus as ever. but the rest of the sound didn't sound right. Then we get Soul Stripper. This is you knew what was coming. You know, I mean, I don't remember this because I didn't get this album until way in the 80s. But when you listen to it, you go, ooh, yeah, we knew where they were going. Great guitar work from Malcolm and Angus on that one. Then there's You Ain't Got a Hold on Me. This is a very basic rock and roll track. Yeah, it's no effects, but it's got really good. Bond's voice is very strong, fantastic. Then we get Love Song. This is another basic track. There's not many effects on it, but you can tell again that it's some great singing from Bond, and that we're going to go places. And the last track on the album, Show Business, great rocker. It's already got that grinding rhythm from Malcolm, and of course you've got Bon Scott showboating, absolutely brilliant. Okay, what did the critics think of this? Now, AllMusic said this version of AC/DC, it was a very young band still coming into their own, and the process of self-discovery. And they say it's the most inconsistent and unique of Bon Scott's albums. How did he do in Australia? Well, it got into the Australian album charts and got to number 14. I mean, it's certified 5 times platinum, 350,000 sales, which ain't bad for an album that you're only released in Australia. What do I think of it? I like it. It's got the roots of the band, and I do play quite a lot. I mean, I love Show Business. It's a great track. So let's have a look at the markings of it. Okay, song quality. The songs are there, even the ones with the weaker music. They're great songs. Bon was a great songwriter, just like Malcolm, and it's pretty solid. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Production. Harry Vanda and George Young, great producers. Even this, for 1975, it's a well-produced album. There's no, you can't tell it's dated. It could have been recorded yesterday. Some of the drumming though is a little bit off kilter because it's, I don't know, I think it's because you got 3 different drummers. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5 on production. Okay, reception. I mean, forget what AllMusic said, that it's inconsistent. Well, every band has to start somewhere. But you could see where they were going. Everyone has a bit of experimentation. You listen to any debut album by some great bands, it's a bit hit and miss, but fans loved it. So for reception, I'll also give it a 4 out of 5. So it's all the 4s today, which gives it an RTO ranking of 12 out of 15. Okay, time to get in the time machine, pack your sandwiches, and we're going to go 45 years into the future, and we're going to land in 2020 for the 17th album, Power Up, released on the 13th of November 2020. This lineup is going to be, of course, Brian Johnson on the vocals, Phil Rudd on drums, Cliff Williams on the bass, Stevie Young on rhythm, and Mr. Angus Young. So we all know this album's pretty dedicated to Malcolm. This is the first album they made since Malcolm's death, and there was what started this, of course, is when there was all at Malcolm's funeral, and I think it got the rock and roll juices flowing again. I mean, remember, after Rock All Burst, Cliff Williams said he was going to retire. Brian Johnson had problems with his hearing. Now, when they were in the middle of a tour, which, I mean, I'm not the greatest lover of Axl Rose, but fair play to him standing in. I mean, he didn't do a bad job. I mean, he loves AC/DC, and he just done it because for the thing. And okay, people say he shouldn't have done it, but I don't think people understand. If they'd have cancelled the tour, they'd have lost lots of money. So it's just easy to find someone to come in and finish the tour, and we all thought that was it. But no, they come back. So let's have a look at this great album. Okay, this one was produced by Brendan O'Brien, and the engineer was Mike Fraser. So the first track, Realise. Solid as you like. Stevie Young stepped into this band. I mean, he had big shoes to follow in his uncle, but he's adapted his guitar so it sounds like Malcolm's, and he's on fire in this. The rhythm is solid. He's also started to work very well with Cliff. Fantastic. Rejection. Brian sounds fantastic on this track. His voice is stronger than ever. It's a lot stronger than it was on Rock or Bust. Awesome track. Shot in the Dark. My favourite track on the album. First track, obviously, we all heard from AC/DC. It's a killer track. Just what it says on the tin. Great rock and roll. Through the Mist of Time. Oh, it's so good to see Cliff Williams and Phil Rudd back together. They are one of the tightest rhythm sections in the business, I think. Their timing is impeccable. They know, I mean, they've been playing together for so long, they just know what each other's going to do, and seeing them on stage together is always a treat. Kick Me When You're Down. Solid stuff. Great guitar solo from Angus Young, of course. Doing the business as ever. Witch's Spell. Great driving guitar riffs on this. Doesn't get any better than that. Demon Fire. Again, that lovely Cliff Williams deep bass line. Terrific bass player. Really does pick up the beat on this one, and everyone else, as I always say, comes in and works their way around Cliff's playing. Wild Reputation. Fantastic. Angus playing some great stuff. No Man's Land, another solid track. I love that track. Systems Down, my favourite album track. This is on this album. Great rocker. Angus solo is just the job, what you need. Money Shot. Brian singing on that is fantastic. The guitar work is brilliant. You can just imagine Angus strutting around the stage to this one. Really good track. The last track, brilliant, just brilliant. Brian on fire. Phil Rudd's drumming is just absolutely belting on this. I love that sound he gets on them drums. It's hard, it's heavy, and he sits there casually playing it with a fag in his mouth, and he's just, he's a bit of a wild bull, but when he's playing them drums he's as cool as a cucumber. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Okay, this album is what last year needed. We was in the middle of a lockdown. Everyone was bored, fed up. What's going to happen? We didn't know what, you know. AC/DC come along and blew us away. It's just it was just a delight, and it was the highlight of 2020. AC/DC's new album. But what an album to come back on. I mean, Steve Young coming in and filling the boots of Malcolm, and it sounds just like classic AC/DC. And I think Brian's voice has not been as this good for many years. He sounds terrific. What do the critics think? Well, the fans loved it. It debuted at #1 in Australia. Debuted at #1 here. It was just great stuff. The album was charted on the 13th of November with 62,000 chart sales, displacing Kylie Minogue's Disco as the biggest opening release of 2020 at that time. Absolutely brilliant. Every if you go through the band, the press accounts, All Music gave it 4 stars, Kerrang give it 4 stars, NME 4 stars, Rolling Stone near enough 4 stars, the Sydney Herald 4 stars. One of the best albums of 2020 without a doubt. Okay, let's see some crunching of numbers. Song quality, superb songs. Every single one of them is brilliant. There is not a bad track on this album. There's not a bad track on any of the AC/DC albums, actually. So I'll give it a full marks, 5 out of 5. Production, brilliant production. Sounds crisp, clear. Brendan O'Brien, very good producer. Well, he's worked with them before, and he got the sound right. This sounds a lot better than Rock or Bust. And Brian just sounded outstanding on this. So production gets another 5. Reception, everybody loved it. So there's only one thing in it, 5. 5 out of 5. So full marks for Power Up. Well, I think it's going to be a classic. In 10 years' time, we'll be looking back and saying, "Oh, that's a classic AC/DC album." So that's why it's got full marks. So what did they do in between that High Voltage and Power Up? Well, we'll have a look, shall we? So also in 1975, in Australia only, they released T.N.T. And on here we've got Bon Scott on lead vocals and bagpipes, Angus Young on the guitars, Malcolm Young on rhythm, Mark Evans appears on here as well, Phil Rudd, George Young plays bass guitar on a couple of tracks, and Tony T.N.T plays some drums on a couple of tracks too. So what's on this album? Well, we've got the classic It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll. Great track. Bagpipes, fantastic. Rock and roll singer, gonna be a rock and roll singer. Great little track. The all impressive The Jack, great bluesy number. The brilliant Live Wire, I love Live Wire. T.N.T's on here. Rocker, I'm a rocker, a roller. And can I sit next to you, girl? Well, I'm in a good mood today. I went to see my first gig last night, so which we'll talk about later. High Voltage, cracking track. Then we got School Days, the old Chuck Berry number, great version of that. So they were doing all right, and then they decided to release an international version of High Voltage, which came out in 1976. Same lineup, of course, mixed it up a little bit more. On this, you've got It's a Long Way to if you want rock and roll singers on here. The Jack Live Wire, T.N.T, Can I Sit Next to You. They brought Little Lover on it from the original High Voltage. She's Got Balls from the original, and High Voltage itself. Not content with bringing out one album in 1976 internationally, they bring out another one. They bring out Dirty D's Done Dirt Cheap, and there's two versions of this, hence the two covers. We'll look at the Australian one first. It's got Dirty D's Done Dirt Cheap. Love that track. Love that guitar in that. It's brilliant. It ain't no fun waiting around to be a millionaire. It's probably got a very monotonous guitar riff, but it's got a thing, hasn't it, about get that airplane off my airport sort of thing. There's going to be some rocking. Love that track. The fantastic Problem Child, of course. Squealer, great track. Big Balls, bit of a innuendo thing, and then this is a song that doesn't appear on the international version. Rock in Peace, great track. Beautiful Ride On, and Jailbreak, one of my favourite tracks by AC/DC, and I loved it when they used to do it live. Fantastic track. So on the international version, you got Dirty D's Done Dirt Cheap, Love at First Feel, Big Balls and Rocker go into each other, and it's brilliant how they do that. Problem Child, there's going to be some rocking, Ain't No Fun, Ride On, Squealer, again classic stuff. Then we move on to 1977, one of my favourite albums by AC/DC, Let There Be Rock, 1977. Opens up with the brilliant Go Down. Love that. Ba-dum-dum. Then Dog Eat Dog, Eat Cat 2. Let There Be Rock. I love the video to that. I've put it in the playlist. Bond's on fire. I love what he does. Then we got the brilliant Bad Boy Boogie. If you remember when we did the live album ranking of AC/DC, talked about Bad Boy Boogie. It's where Angus does his strip. The live version of that is so cool. Then we get Overdose, great track. Crabsteady in Blue, yeah, one of Bond's little ditties. Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, great track again. And then we get the Angus, Whole Lot of Rosie, great track to end the album. 1978 comes along, and we get another great album, Solid As You Like, Powerage. This has got some great tracks on it. It opens up with the Rock and Roll Dalmatian, great track. Give Me a Bullet, fantastic track. Down Payment Blues, that doom 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 doom. Bon Scott's on fire on that. Gone Shooting, nice little track that is. Then we get the brilliant Riff Raff, one of my favourite tracks by AC/DC. It's just full of energy. Sin City, love the bass in that from Cliff, awesome. First appearance in the band, because Mark Evans left. So this is Cliff's first album, and he does that brilliant bass line in Sin City. Then we get the great Up to My Neck in You, brilliant track. Who's Next to the Moon, the stunning Cold Hearted Man, and Kicked in the Teeth, Whole Lot of Rosie Part 2, so far as I'm concerned. Then we get to 1979, and this is that breakthrough album where everyone loved it. Mutt Lange's on board now. Luckily they got it out in 1979. He's a great producer, but boy does he take a long time. Opens up of course with that, the brilliant Highway to Hell. Great track that is. Of course, Girls Got Rhythm. Great little track. Then we get to my favourite tracks on the album. Walk All Over You. Great track. Let me get my favourite track. It's one of my favourite tracks that Bon Scott did, Touch Too Much. Great vocal in this. Great guitar solo. Awesome. Beating Around the Bush. Great stuff. Shot Down in Flames. Love that guitar solo. That dun dun dun. Brilliant. Get It Hot. It's actually one of the tracks I love it, but it's not my favourite. If You Want Blood, You've Got It. Fantastic track. Love Hungry Man. Awesome track. And then the dark and deepest Night Prowler. Awesome. And at the end you get Nanu Nanu. Was it Shad's Button? Nanu Nanu. Last thing you'll ever hear Bon say on an album. And sadly, that was Bon's last album, because early in 1980 he died. I remember it. So sad. You know, for a young headbanger really into AC/DC, and then to find out he died, because we lost John Bonham as well at the same time, and it was all new to, you know, someone of my age, you know, losing people, you know, that bands you love. So they nearly all packed it in. Then Brian Johnson came on the scene, and we had Back in Black, that now is a legend of an album. Great tracks on here. Opens up with the Hells Bells, still a great track live today. Shoot to Thrill, great track. I love the guitar solo in that. Another firm favourite when you go and see them. It's usually the second or third track in the set. Great track. Let me get Honey, What You Do for Money, Honey. Brian Johnson's great on that. Great vocal from him. Giving the Dog a Bone. Top draw stuff again. Let Me Put My Love Into You. Play on words again from AC/DC. Super song. Then we get the classic Black in Black with one of the most iconic opening riffs ever. Then we get You Shook Me All Night Long. It's a great track. Loved it when it come out, but now it's now a song that it gets played to death, of course, but I've still got a lot of affection for it. Have a Drink on Me is brilliant. Shake a Leg, again, top draw stuff. And then one of my favourite tracks on the album, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. I've got the single of that. Brilliant track. Okay, brilliant album. So what they do, come back with another one. Had to be strong. It was strong, but it didn't. I don't think For Those About to Rock from 1981 didn't have the same kick as it did Back in Black did, but it's still got some great tracks on it. It opens up with the anthem, and I still love this to this day when it's played live. For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. Awesome track. Put the Finger on You, solid AC/DC track, nothing wrong with that one. Let's Get It Up, great track. Inject the Venom, good track again. Snowballed, super stuff. Evil Walks, love that. Curse of the Devil, super track. Breaking the Rules, nice. They're all good tracks. I mean, I love this album. Care what the critics think, it's what I think and what us fans think. Night of the Long Knives, it's not too bad, and Spellbound. Then in 1983, this is the most underrated album. Mutt Lange had gone. I think that was the trouble with For Those That Back to Rock. It was too clean. Mutt Lange, you know, as much as he's a great producer and he's produced some great albums, some bands I think his style of production works. He sort of cleaned up the songs a little bit, and I don't like that. AC/DC to me is just raw and heavy. So Flick of the Switch goes back to basics, and these has got some of the most outstanding tracks by AC/DC. Rising Power, awesome track. House is on Fire, pretty solid. Flick of the Switch, I'll Blow You Sky High, love that track. Nervous Shakedown, great stuff. Landside, hard, heavy, fast. Guns for Hire, the beginning of that is just terrific. Then we get Deep in the Hole, brilliant track. Bedlam in Belgium, superb. Badlands and Brain Shake in the album, solid stuff. But at the end of 1983, though, this tour, Phil Rudd said, I'm off. So he left, so they had to find another drummer, and they brought in Simon Wright for the Fly on the Wall tour. And Fly on the Wall. Now, this was the very first time I ever saw AC/DC on the Fly on the Wall tour. And the album, they produced it themselves, and it's a shame because this album's got some great tracks on it, but the production's a bit naff. I mean, Fly on the Wall is brilliant. Shake Your Foundations is great. I mean, they did something to that because it was in the film. Got the soundtrack. Can't think of the name of the film. Oh, it's gone. But they re-record that and it sounds a lot better. First Blood, great guitar riffs, but you can't hear Brian singing. Danger, I like that. It's a bit different for AC/DC. Then we got the brilliant Sink the Pink. Love the guitar solo in that. That's in the playlist. Playing with the Girls, great riff at the start of that. Stand Up, great track. Hell and High Water, Back in Business, Send for the Man. It's just a shame the production on this album is not very good, but live, the tracks they played live are absolutely brilliant. I mean, Fly on the Wall live is terrific. They backed up that with another album, Blow Up Your Video, Heat Seeker, great track. That's the Way I Want to Rock and Roll, one of my favourite tracks. I love the video to that. Mean Streak, good track. Gozo, not particularly a favourite of mine, that one isn't. Kissing Dynamite, love that. Nick of Time, pretty good track. Some Sim for Nothing, reasonable track. Rough Stuff's alright. Two's Up, I'm always out on that one. This Means War, great track. It's not particularly my favourite album. I don't play it as much as I play the others, but I do play it because I do love some of most of the tracks on it. So I wouldn't say it's the worst album I've ever heard, but I've got better AC/DC albums, but I still love it. Okay, 2-year break. New drummer comes in, Chris Slade, The Firm. He's a good drummer. The Razor's Edge, 1990. Opens up with a brilliant Thunderstruck. Bit of an anthem now. Great guitar work. Then we get the brilliant Fire Your Guns. Money Talks, great track. Then we get the title track, Razor's Edge, awesome track. Mistress for Christmas, Rock Your Heart Out, awesome track. Then we get a track called Are You Ready? It's my favourite track on the album, not because it is a great song, but the reason I love this track, I'm actually in the video. I am one of the prisoners. Great day that was. The band was so great, you could talk to them. It was the producer that got on everyone's nerves, because he was going all that, and all I remember, behind his back, Brian was really taking the mickey out of him. Very special song to me. Always will be, because I was in the video, met the band. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, Angus is so small when you stand next to him. Then we Got You by the Balls, solid but AC/DC track. Shot of Love, Let's Make It, Goodbye to Good Luck and Good Riddance. Start again, Iain. Goodbye and Good Riddance to Bad Luck. Yeah, I like that, especially this year I've had. If You Dare, great track. I might put I took some pictures from that day, and I'll put them in a little collage sort of thing, so you can have a look at behind the scenes of a day with AC/DC. Okay, we had to wait 5 years though for another album, and the good news was Phil Rudd was back. Ballbreaker, saw them on this tour as well. Absolutely out the top drawer stuff. Opens up with Hard as a Rock. Bum, 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 bum. Cover You in Oil, great track. The Führer, very solid track. Boogeyman, very much in the vein of the Jack, I think, great. We got The Honey Roll, Burning Alive's good. Hail Steve, love that track. Love Bomb's great. Caught With Your Pants Down, proper tongue-in-cheek AC/DC there. Whiskey on the Rocks, brilliant track. And then we got the title track, Ballbreaker. I remember seeing them live. Brian sits on this huge ball and it's swinging around and he's singing. You go, wow, he's gonna fall off. Great track though. It's a very good album, and I love that album, and it was just great to hear Phil Rudd back on the drums. Next then, we had to wait another 5 years for Stiff Upper Lip, year 2000. Stiff Upper Lip, of course, is a great track. Meltdown, it's a great boogie track. House of Jazz, pretty cool. Hold Me Back, Cliff's bass rocks on this. Safe in New York City, solid. Can't Stand Still, bit thunder. It's very thunderstruckish. Like that you start, great track. Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Any song that mentions rock and roll is always good. Satellite Blues is a corker. Damned, good track, solid. Come and Get It, brilliant. All Screwed Up, Give It Up, all great tracks. Solid AC/DC, just what you want. Then we had to wait another 8 years for another album, and then we got Black Ice. Sadly, this was the last album that Malcolm made with them, but he left some great tracks off this album. Rock and Roll Train, of course, is brilliant. Skies on Fire, okay. Big Jack, solid track. Anything Goes, it's a bit cheesy, the thing, but I love it because it's got a nice melody and I love that. War Machine is brilliant. Smash and Grab, Spoiling for a Fight, Wheels. There's too many tracks on this album, that's the only downside of it. Some of them they're okay, but don't dislike them, but I think there's just too many on this album. Decibel and Wheels, and then we get Stormy Mayday, great rocker, I love that one. She Likes Rock and Roll's pretty okay. Money Made, Yeah, great track, bluesy, rocky type thing. Rock and Roll Dreams, alright. Rockin' the Wall Away, bit of a filler. And Black Ice is a belter. Okay, though, when we found that poor old Malcolm got dementia, couldn't remember the songs, so sad. So we had to leave, and it was all sad. But there's another member of the Young family that stepped in. Angus and Malcolm's nephew, Stevie, fitted in like a glove. Out come Rock or Bust. So you've got Brian, Angus, Stevie, Cliff and Phil. Corking stuff on this one. A lot of people thought this was a weak album. I didn't think it was. I saw them on this tour. Obviously Phil Rudd wasn't drumming because of his little misdemeanors. They brought back in Chris Slade. It was a terrific gig. Everyone thought this may be it. So we all went and saw them, and it was a superb thing. Play Ball. I love that. I could do Rock or Bust. Best tracks on the album, the opening two. Rock the Blues Away is a nice solid track. Misadventure. Okay, that one's a little bit not for me. It's one of the only tracks I really don't like. Dogs of War, superb. Got some Rock and Roll Thunder. It mentions Rock and Roll Thunder, awesome. Hard Times, solid. Baptism of Fire is absolutely a belter. Rock the House, pretty cool. Sweet Candy, that's alright. And the last track is a Mission in Control, pretty solid track. So that's AC/DC in a nutshell, and happy birthday to Mr. Johnson. You're an absolute star. They're touring next year, and I will be going. I don't mind giving my money away to this band. They are a very dear band to me. As I said, they have not really made a bad album. There's one or two tracks you go, don't like that one, but I can count the whole of this catalogue. I can count on my hand the ones I'm not too keen on. So that's another then and now. What we got left today, we have got album covers, and we're going to be ranking the album covers of the legendary Led Zeppelin. But of course, if you want me to rank the Led Zeppelin albums, you've got to ask me, because I won't do them unless I'm asked, because they're not obscure enough. But as you know on our channel, you ask and I will do. So I will see you later for that one. Take care for now.